Thank you. My name's Heidi, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Heidi.
Hi, Heidi.
Lara and I's experience was pre-AA drinking experience, so it was a lot more fun than post-AA. I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Glad to hear it. I'm really grateful to be here. I mean, really, really just honored to be in Alcoholics Anonymous and live the kind of life that I get to live. And this last Monday, I celebrated 34 years of sobriety, and that's a whole lot of God's grace. You know, I've been along for the ride. You know, and I balked at everything, and eventually become willing through desperation. I loved the idea of what alcohol could do for me. I mean, loved it. Like it was very exciting to me to think about getting drunk, think about getting to drink. And, I always had this idea about what it was going to be like when I drank. And it far exceeded what it far exceed. I always overshot, but I was just sure that this time I was gonna do it upright. And it was very normal. It was very normal to. My family drank, my friends drank. I made sure that, the part in the book that talks about we, normally would not mix. I think I would probably mix with quite a few of you, especially if you were buying. I needed some alcohol, bottom line. It was my medicine. It worked right for me, and I had people around me that, I had a drink inside of my family, and I had a teetotal inside of my family, and I couldn't really stand the teetotalers. I really liked the drunks. It's still the same way for me. Even sober, I still like the drunks so much better than the teetotalers. I get around them, and I'm oof. So, anyways, so we drank. It was normal. And I made sure that I hung with people that drank. And, that's what we did. That's how I coped with life. I mean, that's pretty normal, everything that went on for me seemed pretty normal. And just the right thing, it just seemed like the right thing to me. Didn't it for you? Let's get it on. So, it worked for a while. But a relatively short while, really, it was a relatively short period of time. By the time I was 19 years old, I had already had several difficulties with alcohol, but didn't attribute those difficulties to alcohol. I was just, had some run-ins with bad luck, but I'd never really gotten jammed up bad. I had been in a lot of cop cars, but had never actually, gone to jail or, I didn't have time in my life to get married and lose a husband or, create huge financial stuff. But what did happen was that, I turned into, I was a legal adult, and I had to make some geographics, that bad luck thing again. And, I didn't think that it was odd that I couldn't hold down a job. There were parties to go to. So, it only made sense. It made sense to me to do things that worked well with my alcoholism. So of course I was a drug dealer. It worked well, and so anyways, I'm starting to grow up, and I think pretty highly of myself, and I think that it's time to do better in my life. than what had been going on. Because I'd been, on and off. I would go live on the streets for a while, and then, maybe I was a binge drinker. I might correlate with how I drank. But, and then I would like get my shit together a little bit. I'd get, at least a couch to surf on or something, better than an abandoned car. It didn't really matter to me. What mattered to me was happening. I was getting to drink and use side dishes at every given opportunity because I didn't have to pay rent and I didn't have to show up at a job and I didn't have to, comply with any other obligations or responsibilities in my life other than getting some more of whatever I could into my body. And I liked that. That's, that's what I wanted to do. I dropped out of school very early on because it interfered with that process of getting loaded as much as possible. So I'm getting a little bit older and I'm trying really hard to manage my life better. And, if I could just get a different kind of guy and if I could just, maybe, in fact, my last year, I really could not drink well. If I could just, play a little chemistry and, get the right amounts of the right substances in me, I was pretty sure it would be okay. And, in fact, all along, I had, by the age of 10, I had started using chemicals to control my alcoholism. And of course, I don't realize this at the time. But, looking back, I realized that, I just couldn't get a buzz on and stay there. I was always like, overshooting the mark and throwing up and, trying to hit the mark again. And, the story. So, anyways, I had been living a pretty rough life. I had been doing some moving around and I don't realize what the problem is, and so I get to this point in my life where I think, and I had made some commitments and I was doing a pretty good job. I'd like to tell you I was on a winning streak when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I really believe that was true. I swear to God. At the time I had a job, a real job where there was taxes and I had to show up on time. And I was actually, Lara had told me about that the state of Washington would pay for me to go to college and get a diploma. And so I thought that might be, I was going to a couple of classes in the evening to get my diploma. And I had this normie guy on the, I had the hook set and, I was going to get married and have 2 babies and get a Ford Taurus station wagon. And I had figured out that I really had to quit putting this stuff in because it wasn't going to work. And so I was trying really hard to stop drinking and using drugs and doing the bad things that I've been doing. And I couldn't. And excuse me, I'm trying and trying and trying and trying. And I really want to make my life work and I can't, so I may have thought that I was on a winning streak, but I also knew deep down inside what was coming. I knew that I needed a good, thank you so much, Steve. One of the most thoughtful men I know.
Lara's idea.
Yeah.
It's an honest program, right?
So I know I'm like trying to pay attention in the fog. I know that I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready to, get it on. And getting it on means that I just blow off everything, and the job's gone, school's gone, that boyfriend's, everything's gone, and I know that it's time to party. And So I'm trying really, I'm scrambling hard to make it different, and I can't make it different. I can't. I can't stop. And every day after work, I have to get something in my body, and I could white knuckle it to 3 days, but by that third night, I have to. I mean, it's like breathing to me. I can only hold my breath for 3 days, and then I gotta suck air. And so that's the way it was for me. I just had to. I had to, and I didn't realize that that was alcoholism. So, I had this moment of clarity one day in downtown Kent, and I'm at the intersection of Smith and Central, and I have something in my body, and I don't know what the deal is. All I know is that I'm sitting there, and I think to myself, man, I can't keep on doing this, and I can't stop. And it was the truth for me, and I saw it very clearly that I wasn't going to be able to stop. I had no shot. It's almost like I had tried everything, and I just, it was just one of those moments. And what I remember is I had a big sigh come out of my body, and at the same time, I said, God, I need some help. And and then the light turned green, and I went on my merry way. It's my truth. I don't know. I continued on, and but what happened was that looking back, I continued to drink and use. But what happened were that there were these strange coincidences. These strange people started showing up, going to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was in this college class, and I was taking this class from this amazing professor, and the man changed my life. He like I truly must be touched by God, because like he inspired what he really did is that he inspired me to want to live. I don't know what the deal was there, but I just knew that I wanted to live. And so, anyways, I continue to try and manage my usage and alcoholism, and I got all this weird stuff going on around me. And one day, I think to myself, and I would have thoughts like, okay, well, I'm not gonna. Maybe I'll just drink socially. And I was aware enough at that point that I knew that there was no such thing for me. And I remember saying to myself, Heidi, you just don't, like, because once in a while I would be able to, white knuckle through an experience of drinking what other people might perceive as I could only fake it for this long, and then I just had to guzzle the shit. I had to get it on. So, anyways, I had this thought one day, maybe I should go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And, I'd been hanging out with Lara and her mom through usage, and, we had a grand time. It was great. But, the whole time, Sunday mornings, we would occasionally go to breakfast meetings, So, like, I was being exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was like 13 years old. And these two, they had sobered up. Last I knew, they had taken me to some AA meetings. I remember being at Fremont, admitting that I was an and that's my name's Heidi, and I'm an alcoholic, and that's all I could say. And then I was done. We were 17. And done. I'm not ever going back there again. And here we are a couple of years later, and I think to myself, maybe I should go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I wonder if Lara and Sherry are still in Alcoholics Anonymous. If those two women can get and stay sober, because They were worse than me. I'm gonna tell you what. Damn.
That's my girl.
So, anyways, I put on a really nice dress, some nice Italian heels. I was living in a house at that point, and I went down to Serenity Hall. And
And crack house.
yeah, I felt right at home. So I go down there and you know, I walk upstairs and right away, you know, the first door on the right, there's a women's meeting going on in there, and I look in there and Lara's in there, and so I walk in and I sit down. The meeting's already going, and you know, I got to tell you, it's the third day. My last deal had been on Sunday, and this is a Wednesday. And after the meeting, you know, I have no idea what they said in that meeting. But after the meeting, you know, she comes over and blah, blah, blah. And she says to me, well, if you could just not drink tonight and come back tomorrow, that'd be good. And I, you know, did something like this. I don't know what came out of my mouth. But in here, I really thought to myself, you know, I'm fucked. It's the third day. It's the third day, and I don't have any choice. And at this point, I know that I don't have any choice. I don't have any choice because I have never been able to go longer than 3 days. And so I just kind of, yeah, all right, you know, and I go home. And somehow, some way, I don't put anything in my body that night. And I come back the next day, and she's waiting for me. She's waiting for me, and she's got a book. And, you know, she gives me a book, and she says something to the effect of, you know, if you want to get sober, you might want to read this book. And if you want your life to get amazing, do what it says to do in the book. And you know, I sit down and I do another meeting, and you know, again, I have no idea what these people are speaking a foreign language, you know. But again, just don't drink tonight and come back again tomorrow. And you know, so I could follow that instruction. I believe by the third day, a woman named Shirley it's on unmanageability. And I do remember this because I spoke and said it's a lot more manageable now that I'm not drinking. Shirley says, keep coming back. And I'm like, that bitch right away. I could just tell the tone was, you know. Anyways, Shirley and I got along great later. But, you know, like what started happening is that, you know, I really started paying attention. I was a good student. And I started listening to what they were saying. And I got to tell you that the truth inside of me was that I doubted whether this program would work for me. I really doubted. This is my timer?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, good. 30 seconds?
No.
Okay, good. So I was doubtful that this was really going to work. You know, I started to hear a little more about what was going on in the meetings, and they were talking about this God concept, and I pretty much thought I was screwed. And you know, I did take that book home and I started reading it. I saw where, you know, young people, you probably maybe just a potential alcoholic. And so I started announcing myself in meetings as, my name's Heidi, I'm a potential alcoholic and a drug addict. I was pretty sure I was a drug addict, but probably not an alcoholic. And, you know, Lara kindly, you know, pointed out in the book what makes us really alcoholic, that, you know, once we put it in, we can't control how much we put it in. And then I had to agree with that a little bit, but there was that one time that I had that one drink, one time. And there were plenty of times that I didn't drink at all when there was some there, because I was under 21. And I was not interested in a beer or two. If you had a 6-pack and asked me if I wanted a beer, I wasn't interested. Now, if you have, a major, what the major supply looks like. If you've got that, let's go. I'm game. So I was talked to about, what it really meant to be an alcoholic. Because of course I had this, this idea, and I wasn't as bad as the alcoholics that I thought there were. So, I'm reading this book and I'm going to meetings and I'm really listening, and somewhere along the line, not very far in, I make up my mind that I'm suspicious that this will work for me, but I don't have any options left. Yeah. And I know it. And so I think to myself, you know what? I'm really going to do this. Here's this girlfriend of mine that has been way worse than me, way worse than me. And she says, read this book and do what it says to do in it. And you won't have to drink and your life will get amazing. And, and like I'm hanging out with her and her mom a little bit, and their reaction to life is so different. It's different. And so I make up my mind that I'm going to do what these people in this book tell me to do. And, it's kind of like, I'm just like, God, just shut up, Heidi. Just shut up and do what they tell you to do. And, Lara was all about, let's go to another meeting. Like right away, she drags me over to her sponsor's house, and we're, in the living room listening to Joe and Charlie tapes. And I remember like 2 Sundays in, after, several pots of coffee and probably a pack and a half of cigarettes, what can we do now? Let's go to another meeting, okay, they talked a lot back then about hang with the winners, and she was introducing me to people like John Joseph fucking Springer, and like what happened for me, John, he probably saved my life, because before I made this commitment to really do this deal, where after a meeting, he gets a hold of my arm. He has my arm, and he starts talking to me and pointing, and he's very passionately talking to me, and he is spitting on me because he's so passionate, and he is telling me over and over and over, if I will just diligently work these steps. And he said diligently so many times and so forcefully that I went home and I looked up the word. I was like, okay, and so I didn't understand, and I asked her to be my sponsor, and she refused. She refused. So, but urged me to go find a sponsor. And so I found a woman who had some time and was willing, and willing to take me through the book and the steps. And I started, not really believing that it would work, and they gave me this prayer card, and they said, how about if you ask God every day to keep you sober? And so in the morning, I would, I had an old Camaro that I drove to work, and I would get up in the morning and I would start that thing up, and I would sit there while it was warming up, and I would recite, I would just say the words, I would just say the words. I didn't want God. I didn't know God. I didn't think God wanted anything to do with me, but I was willing to do the actions that these crazy mofos in Alcoholics Anonymous were asking me to do. And, and I remember getting to like 15 or 16 days of sobriety and just being amazed. Just like, for me to be sober, completely sober, with nothing else in my body for, a couple weeks was a miracle. And so, I just kept on. I went to, I got on this stuff because part of my deal was that I thought that I was going to whip through these steps really well. I mean, I heard you guys talk about it was a lifelong process, but I'm pretty sure that was just for you. I was going to do a really good, thorough job here. And then I was going to go back and hook up with that business owner man to get the Ford Taurus station wagon. And so, I mean, like I jumped in. That idea that if I could just do it right enough, I could get on down the road was actually a saving grace for me because I jumped in and I started doing this stuff. And I didn't believe it. Well, what do you mean put pen to paper and that's gonna, my anger and shit's gonna get resolved. I just didn't, and here we are 34 years later. I got to tell you, every time I sit down to do a 4-step, I'm like, it's not going to work on this one. I'm sure of it. It works every time, every single time. So, I got to start staying sober and start on this journey. And, I muddled through as most alcoholics do. And what happened, I moved away and had experiences and I didn't marry for the Ford Taurus station wagon. I found some hot guy with a good, nice Camaro, and then eventually I got, put on a Harley Davidson and they said, go like this, it'll be fun. And I said, yeah, never have gone back to the Ford Taurus station wagon deal, but my life's been really fun. Anyways, I came back to the Puget Sound area when I was 20 years sober and rehooked up with Laren. And she said to me, we're going to do this big book workshop. I think you should come. And I was like, do you know how many times I've read that big book? I've got it. I'm good. She says, no, really. I want you to come. I want you to, this is you'll have a new experience. And, no, I don't need to. And she was pretty insistent. And I'm, all right. So, 20 years sober, I started attending this big book workshop. And I'm not going to tell you that my life was shit before that time, because it certainly wasn't. I certainly had started to develop a relationship with God. And I certainly had done a lot of action in Alcoholics Anonymous. But some things, some clearer understanding about the facts about alcoholism and came to me, and a very clear understanding on how to carry this message to the newcomer started to occur. And then, of course, after that, there started to be some very intense work with other alcoholics. And I got to tell you that that has really changed my life. That has brought in a whole new depth and understanding to Alcoholics Anonymous and God and the people around me. And, some of the things that happened for me was that I understood that no matter what happens out here, the extent that I turn my will and my life over the care of God is the extent that He allows me to match calamity with serenity. And no matter what in the world is going on, what in the entire world, if I'll just pray and wait and find another alcoholic to work with, it's really just fine. It's really okay in here. And this is what I've been looking for all my life. Pre-Alcoholics Anonymous, all that chasing after whatever, it's all really been about trying to get okay in here. So as I muddle through life and I work with other alcoholics, and I work with other alcoholics, and life happens, I've experienced some pretty major deaths here lately, and get out the calendar because I got to line up. I got to line up my girls. I got appointments every morning to hook up with another alcoholic and, do some step work. And, it's amazing what we can get through. It's amazing how it's just okay. And you know what? I think it's amazing how we get fed here in Alcoholics Anonymous, how we get hooked up with God, how we get hooked up with people, how we feel such powerful purpose and hope and just okayness with life. At the intersection of Smith and Central, when I had that moment of clarity, I got to tell you that it was just so black and empty and desperate and lonely in here, just lost. And today I can tell you, hooked up. That's what it feels like in here. Hooked up. Like, and it feels good. It feels better than any drinking drug concoction that I ever got into my body.
Amen.
Yeah. Amen. That's what I say. So I'm really grateful. I'm really honored. I still have work to do. I still, if anything, it has just propelled me more into seeking God's will for me. What does He want? That's the big difference. And I still want things. I'm still human. I still want things. But what happens for me, and I ask Him, I'm not above a selfish prayer, not in the least. God, I want this. But if you want something different for me, I'll take that instead. Because the fine folks of Alcoholics Anonymous have insisted that I do self-examination. And the big deal that I've got out of that self-examination is that God brings the cooler shit every single time. I get the better people, I get the cooler house, the nicer car, I get the better bike, and bottom line, I feel better in here. I feel better in here. That's what we're really after here. We want to feel, I don't just want to feel good. Let's get real. I want to feel amazing. I'm an alcoholic. That hasn't changed. But I got to say, God is close.